Oh,
Alright, so our debate is on universal health care, and it is our belief that it is a necessity and a basic human right to have. The benefits of universal health care are clear. Every citizen gets the cost of their health care covered by the state in which they live in. Regardless of their economic or social situation, they should be covered. According to the World Health Organization, universal health care is a situation in which every citizen can receive health services without incurring financial hardship, which in a lot of the cases nowadays is not the case. Everyone gets access to the needs necessary to keep them healthy, whether it be in invasive surgery, pharmaceutical drugs, mental health, going to see a psychiatrist like that. That should be covered by the state. Not only by personal opinion, but also in a factual stance, does universal health care lower premature death, is more cost effective for the state and for the people, and more efficient in treating people than its counterpart, privatized health care. The availability of health care to anyone living is a basic human need, and the fact that developed countries such as the United States and Canada have skewed this basic need and produced it into a cash cow for the economy is devastating to any citizen.
And, in that, it's not even just a need for people, it's actually a given right. To refer to the Declaration of Independence, it stated that all men have unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And having health care is needed to preserve life and pursuit of happiness. It stops poverty, and regardless of if you're poor or if you're rich, everyone's life should be worth the same, and everyone should have the same health care.
I got a really good quote actually from CBC.ca. It didn't have a source from it, but it said, simply put, if you break your leg chasing the Canadian dream, you have the right to get fixed up without opening your wallet, except to pull out your provincial healthcare insurance card.
under the wire. Okay, back to the opening statement on the other side.
Yeah. Okay, first I just want to point out that consider healthcare rights. I don't consider healthcare right. I would say it's, I don't have the right to steal from you, just like you don't have the right to force me to pay for your healthcare. You know what I mean? I don't see it as a right. That being said, let's see. Healthcare is a hot topic right now. Trump's repeal of Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act have been in the spotlight for months now. It's not just a hot button issue in the state. TV aired a story on Friday with the headline, "Is Canadian Healthcare as Great as We Think?" In this particular story, Maureen O'Neill, who's the president of the Canadian Foundation for Health Improvement, says, "We actually aren't inferior to the Americans. In fact, if you look at all the comparisons that get made by the Commonwealth Fund and the OECD, Canada always does almost as badly as the US, usually one or two rankings up." She goes on to talk about how other countries with universal health care are spending a lower percentage of their GDP, and yet they're able to provide their citizens with considerably more benefits. The most recent report from the Fraser Institute for Health and Political Studies found that compared to 28 other countries, universal health care, we got ranked third for the percentage of GDP spent, yet we ranked 19th for MIR units, 22nd for CT scanners, and not surprisingly 25th for physicians available. The fact is, government regulation kills competition, inhibits innovation, and leads to a lack of people becoming doctors, and increasingly long wait times for outdated medical equipment. Dr. Brian Day, former head of the Canadian Medical Association, recently noted that delayed care often transforms an acute and potentially reversible illness or injury into a chronic, irreversible condition that involves permanent disability. So it's something that could have been prevented because of how long it takes. Now it isn't. It's no wonder the Fraser Institute estimates that more than 63,000 Canadians traveled abroad for medical care in 2016. A stat that only continues to climb. And can you blame them? You spend your whole life working hard and paying into a system, and you end up getting long wait times and subpar technology.
Two strong opening statements. Great work, you guys. Back to you for your four statements. Please go ahead.
You lower your chair just a bit.
Okay, you had been focused on the U.S. economy. I'm going to talk about that. In economic productivity, so the U.S. economy loses $65 to $130 billion annually due to poor health or premature death among the uninsured population. And I got that from the Board of Healthcare Services and Institute of Medicine. And when you were saying that it might not be a right, healthcare should be recognized as a right, not a privilege. That's from Bernie Sanders. Healthcare is not a consumer good. but rather universal right. That's Pope Francis. So we're seeing that even leaders are saying that healthcare is a given right. I had referenced earlier the Declaration of Independence says it's a right. Same as mentioned earlier, everyone's life is worth the same. If you wanted to say, is your life worth more than Mitch? You know, like, everyone's life will be equal and is equal. For a right to a right to healthcare, saving lives. So the lack of health insurance is associated with as many as 44,789 deaths per year. So that's a 40% risk of death among the uninsured. So people are dying without it. Wouldn't it just be the most sensible thing to make it happen and save lives? That's from the 2009 Harvard study published in the American Journal of Public Health, by the way.
It's not only for say inaccessible for people under the poverty line, but even middle class families that don't get full cover insurance in Canada. I mean, a lot of the states, obviously, with Obamacare, they're really pushing for it, but it looks like it's going to get pushed back now. But I mean, even in Canada, I myself am pretty lucky because both my parents work for the government, so I'm 100% covered on my pharmaceuticals, my trips to the doctor, stuff like that. Whereas, say, my buddy, whose parents are entrepreneurs, he has to pay $150 for a month's supply of Adderall that he needs. So, I mean, it might be universal health care, but I don't think it's really justified, so.
Universal healthcare also encourages entrepreneurship. This is because people, I don't know if you guys have jobs, but your employer usually is giving you your medical benefits, and while this is now being covered by the state, self-employment in the United States alone would increase by 2 to 3.5%. That's from the Kaufman Rand Institute of Entrepreneurship Public Policy. So I think you're encouraging people to now go into their passions and start a business of their own. And I think that's going to open a market, it's going to open job opportunities. And when we're talking about also lives here, Thailand has universal health care, and they had a decrease in mortality. So infant mortality is now as low as 11 per 1,000 infants, which is a pretty big deal because the success rate has gone up exponentially. And since 1990, the life expectancy in Thailand has doubled thanks to universal health care. That's from the Harvard Public Health Review.
You also look at like Finland, and this is from the World Health Organization as well. And their average lifespan is 84 years old compared, and they pay heavy into their healthcare system. But then you look at the States, and the average lifespan is 79 years old. So that's a 5-year difference. Those last 5 years of those 79 years, maybe even 10, are how good are they going to be, right? There's a lot more restrictions on what you can acquire, like as per food, tobacco, everything like that, in Finland as opposed to the U.S., and I think that reflects heavily on their life expectancy.
Okay, thank you guys for your support statements.
Very interesting points there. All right, so we're going to start with, first of all, the abuse of the system when you have universal health care. People are going to milk the system. Like they'll be going in there when they don't have to, which makes longer lines, obviously. But also, there's citizens who don't live in those countries who just hop the border, and they're taking advantage of your tax money that they didn't pay, and they're just getting all the benefits that we're paying for, but yet they didn't pay a dime. And he also said infant mortality. Actually, in Canada, in rural areas, infant mortality is actually higher than in others because
Wait times.
there's wait times, and there's all the money are going into the larger cities rather than the rural areas, and rural areas are just they're not getting the proper treatment. And he also said that it also happens to do with it'll be better for doctors to go more doctors. Actually, no competition and no innovation. If you're in a private healthcare, you get the money that you deserve. You make your own prices, whereas in universal, it's a government mandated, so it'll reduce the amount of money doctors make, thereby reducing the attraction, thereby no innovation. Like why would you want to be a doctor if there's a ceiling you can't break through.
The term free healthcare gets tossed around a lot. You know what I mean? Like free healthcare, free healthcare. But the reality is that money has to come from somewhere, right? And it's coming from the working class. A study by the Fraser Institute for Health and Political Studies found that 10% of Canadian families with the lowest incomes will pay an average of $523, whereas the top 10%, which is somewhere we should all strive to be, are paying $37,239. Quite a discrepancy. The data also shows that the health care bill has grown faster than the cost of other basic necessities like food, clothing, and shelter, as well as growing 1.5 times faster than the average incomes during the previous decade. This is clearly an unsustainable trend that will only continue to bankrupt this country and push taxes even higher.
Also, the struggle to sustain efficiency, Canada and Australia rank lowest according to the Commonwealth Fund study of accessibility to physician appointments and wait times for basic medical services, as well as special care, tests, and elective surgery. Also, it notes that Canada's city is misplacing the medical records and tests. So there's a lot of medical records and tests that are just misplaced all the time. There's no efficiency because it's all government mandated. It's not like put back on you, it's all government. It's not your privatized healthcare.
The only thing universal about healthcare is the universal debt incurred by these countries. Not only are these countries running major deficits year after year, the amount getting added has continued to rise, and nobody seems to care about this alarming fact. I challenge you to find one country that has universal health care that doesn't have extraordinary amounts of debt. And not only has a lot of debt, show me one country that's making any improvement on that debt. Any one country. There's 29 countries in the world with universal debt. Show me one that doesn't have debt and is making any goals in trying to improve on that debt.
Also, doctors have, they're limited to what they can charge by the government, so, which will not make them enough money, which it could actually help them, which won't help them pay back their loans, and they could actually be undermining their overall life. So like, doctors aren't even making what they should be if they're getting limited by the government of what they can charge on their specific amount of medication and services.
I'd argue that universal health care doesn't even have a specific meaning, you know what I mean? Like in one country it might mean you get dental coverage, in one country it might mean you get your pills paid for you. There needs to be a standard.
Okay,
Go.
Back and forth.
Back and forth, yeah.
whenever you guys want to start.
So, I mean, I'm almost agreeing with you guys in a sense about Canada's healthcare system. Because, yeah, I mean, private healthcare expenditure accounts for 30% of healthcare financing. And this includes, but does not cover, prescription drugs, home care or long-term care, prescription glasses or dental.
Exactly.
Right?
Argued our points.
Right?
Garbage.
So how are you supposed to pay for those things when you're 68 years old, single, and you work in a kitchen?
Well, you put yourself in that situation.
Hey?
You put yourself in that situation.
How can you get away from that
It's not a
situation?
choice sometimes. It's
Yeah. How
I
are
mean,
you, how are you
16
supposed to
years
say
old,
to a
you
6-year-old
constantly
guy?
chose to
You
be
haven't
single
built
for
yourself
one,
in anything,
but,
that's what you get.
Where's
Oh,
that money
because
coming from?
because
Contribute
anybody
to
can
society.
be
Why are you
anybody can
keeping
be
these
a
people
millionaire
alive
if they
that
wanted
a
to, right?
14-year-old could do.
So a guy, say with a little bit of mental issues, he can't get a proper job anywhere, so he has to work in a kitchen, and then he's done that his whole life. He still can't possibly pay for those
So it's
drugs.
our job to pay for him then?
Absolutely.
It's
How,
definitely-
how is that not?
It's
how-
a responsibility to look after people that can't look after themselves. That's just.
No, it's not. It's like,
It-
it's you stealing money from me. You know what
How
I mean?
is-
It's theft.
I'm not. Well, that
Then,
person's not
in
stealing.
that
Use it
case,
to
why
live
don't you
through,
move
right?
to a
Like,
country like the United States where, yeah, if you break your leg, you're going to have to pay
It's even worse than Steve.
10 grand
I
to
wouldn't
get it
call it
fixed.
stealing if he's using that money to get glasses. He's not buying a TV. He's using it to live, to see with his vision.
I don't want
too.
equal access to
So-
healthcare as a prisoner, as a murderer, as a rapist, as a prisoner of war.
Prisoner of war is at the
So prisoners of war get the same
You wanna
access
keep
as we
that
do. You
kind
know
of
what I mean?
life
Like when
kind
I
of-
get,
That is
if
not
I spend my whole
completely
life working and paying into a system, I want the best quality healthcare. When I finally need it, you know what I mean? If I spend year after year after year paying,
Okay.
when I finally get
So-
the age of retirement, I want the best healthcare.
If you want
and
to
I
talk
want it
people
now.
that are getting insured, let's talk about some ineligible occupations. So the Kaiser Family Foundation looked at an insurance company, and some of the occupations that they didn't insure were firefighters, EMTs, and professional athletes. These are people that need health insurance the most. So you're going through
I'm
a
sure
burning
those
building,
people can afford it though.
but
So
should
how
they
does
have
an
to pay
average-
for it?
how does an
Like,
average
shouldn't,
citizen-
that's
It's
the
really
point of
easy to play
universal
the good
though.
guy card, you know what I mean? Like, where's
Yeah.
this money coming
Okay,
from? You know, yeah,
so-
we need to help people. We need
Yeah,
to
it's-
help
Let me give you a
people's
situation. You
responsibility
break
to
your
pay
leg
for
in the
each
States,
other.
you have to pay some amount of money to get it fixed. It's gonna be a lot of money, right? Or you get cancer. If you pay into the healthcare system, you know, month by month, or it gets taxed off you, like in Finland or whatever, you get great coverage from it. It's
Okay.
it's basically gonna be the same
Say
thing.
you don't break your leg, say you
Or,
don't get
but
cancer,
it covers
you'll be-
more than
all
just your leg. It
It
covers
covers a lot more
everything.
than legs.
It would just
Yeah.
be,
Your
so
taxes
yeah, you
every
might,
year,
you
you're
might
paying
fix
all
yourself
that
up
tax
right
money
there.
Just so I can
Yeah.
keep some 78-year-old lady
And we're also
alive.
talking about people getting
Doesn't
covered.
contribute anything to society.
People are getting covered with pre-existing conditions as well, which is a big deal because people with those conditions aren't getting covered. Actually, even I myself had applied for health insurance that was declined for a pre-existing condition, but now everybody is entitled to that care. So,
So a lot more money.
yeah, it is money, but it's also human life. So if you think money matters more than people, then possibly, but people do matter more than money. They invented money, so I mean,
Okay, you look at a place like, I don't know, shit, like in Indonesia or something like that, a couple years ago, their life pyramid is like this. So their parents have a ton of children so that they can have some sort of income, right? Their life expectancy is like, the average age is like 30 years old. You look at Canada, and the life expectancy is like, whatever, 80, or Finland is like 84.
Yeah, in the States it's 32. Right?
The reason why they do that is because they don't have a proper quality of life. They don't have
What
health
does that have
insurance.
to do with healthcare though?
Because they don't have those kind of.
Well, just because the States
Those
doesn't have
sources-
universal healthcare doesn't mean everyone dies when they're 30.
Well, it's a
but
developed
healthcare
country,
would
but
help though.
yeah,
Well, they have
exactly.
also
They don't
more
have those
issues
kind
than
of
just
fucking sources.
healthcare.
Like again,
in
that
a
whole
developed
like
country.
premature death fact is like 40% of the uninsured people are dying prematurely, right? So again, proof that they had
A
universal
lot
health
of kids
care,
in the
just like
universal
Thailand, their
system are
life's
dying
doubled.
prematurely as
So
well. In rural areas.
I'm just saying, in a developed country, or in any country for that aspect, healthcare should just be a given thing.
and by the way, when you're talking about wait times and stuff, the American Medical Association researchers, they found that doctors spend 49% of their time at work on paperwork. But with everyone under the same insurance policy,
There's no competition, that's why, you know what I mean? Like, they have a huge shortage of doctors in this.
okay, so doctors can now focus on patient treatment rather than investing time and resources into insurance policies, malpractice liability.
It's the government that's making them do that, you know what I mean? Like, how is it
This sounds like a government
competition?
conspiracy, but like the point is, now doctors can treat patients rather than do documents about patients.
Great open debate. You have a minute to prepare before. Go.
So basically, to sum everything up, not only is it a basic human right that should be recognized by us, by the states, by every country that has a stable government, but I mean the benefits are clear, like we've stated. I mean, premature deaths are lowered. The economy is stimulated by it. I mean, obvious health benefits are there. So I mean, the fact that you'd turn somebody away at the door because you know they don't have a steady income, or you know they are bankrupt or whatever, it's kind of sad to see for sure.
Just like I said earlier, like Pope Francis had said, Bernie Sanders, we're all agreeing that it is a given right. It's not a privilege. It really isn't about money. A lot of your facts were about money, but human life is obviously a lot more valuable. Like I had said, it encourages entrepreneurship, people to take risks and build their own businesses. For private business, actually, having health insurance paid by the state, not by companies, it reduced labor costs by 12%. So we're helping businesses as well while they're being made. The right to healthcare did save lives. Like I said, it was 40% of uninsured people were like dying early. And for money, there was over $130 billion lost because uninsured people were too sick to get to work or they were dying. So for an economy booster, for people having the right to live, even the double life expectancy in Thailand, this only seems like a ethical, moral actually, thing to have universal health care.
Okay, back to you guys for your closing statements.
Well, that was nice.
I would argue this country doesn't have universal health care, and a push for actually universal health care would just further bankrupt this country. We need to stop treating health care as a right. It is a commodity and a service. The right to health care amounts to socialism and should be the individual's responsibility, not the government's, to secure the health care. Simply pumping more money into an already expensive system is clearly not the answer. I want a system where if I spend my whole life working and paying my share, when I get to retirement, I expect to be rewarded for my hard work by getting access to the best quality Medicare possible. So if you're somebody that plans on underachieving, then yeah, universal health care is for you. If you plan on settling for mediocrity, yeah, socialized medicine all the way. If you plan on having kids without being financially stable or living in your parents' basement playing Warcraft until you're 40, then yeah, I would completely understand your support for government-run health care. I like free stuff too. But if someone who plans on working hard their whole life and paying into a system, shouldn't you be entitled to the best possible health care? Or at least something better than that of a drug addict, a murderer, or even a prisoner of war? I don't have a right to steal from you, just like you don't have a right to force me to pay for your health care.
And again, there's no competition means no innovation in my mind. If you're just gonna be government regulated, why would you wanna be strive with if you have a ceiling, you can't break through it, why even try? And taxes will always increase, so the money thing doesn't seem as well as it sounds as, oh, you don't have to pay for this, but oh wait, how much do you have to pay for a case of beer here as you do in the States?
Yeah, stop punishing the successful for the shortcomings of the poor and the weak.
And why, and the flaw of like, you're not, as long as you're in the country, you get the right to universal health care, even though you didn't even pay for it, and you're just mooching off us pretty much.
Well, the money has to come from somewhere, and it's coming from the working class, and it's coming in the form of taxes and debt.
And it pumps into the large cities, and often the rural areas are forgotten about.
Okay, great debate.